Each day we strive to make it Black home, Black to the future, Black in one piece. I'm Dr. Tasha, host of Black in One Piece.
It's my favorite all the time.
It's just a conversation. We're thinking out loud. I'm your host, Samuel David.
What affirmed me is what continues to affirm me, and that is I'm not forgotten in any capacity.
Peace, big love, big blessings, even bigger living, everything that come with it and everything in between. Today, I have the grand opportunity to partner with Dr. Tasha Ely Kelly, the millennial Black professor, owner of Left on Red. And make sure y'all put the doctor on the front, no matter what you do, with love, with respect, and on purpose.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate that robust introduction. I'm really happy to be here for this crossover episode, Thinking Out Loud, Black in One Piece. And so we're going to jump right into it.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let me see. I do want to ask you a defrost question.
Okay.
I have 3 that I usually ask, but I'm going to ask you, what is your unpopular opinion? What's that thing that you 10 toes down about, but other people are like, Sam, please?
Ooh, that's a grand question. My unpopular opinion, does it have to be centered around Black or just unpopular opinion?
Yeah, just anything.
Unpopular opinion I have is that everybody, even the most raggedy person, got something inside of them that's special.
Wow.
Right, but it might be tucked.
Yeah.
Out of fear, hate, all of that stuff. But everybody has a thing in them that can be brought out if they're willing for it to be brought out. Not everybody sees that. That's why we're in the world we're in right now.
Yeah.
The whirlwind of a world we're in right now. I told you I swim deep sometimes. My bad.
No, that's a good one.
But that's my unpopular opinion.
Okay. I would say mine is, not that you asked me, but.
No, I was about to. I promise I was. But I was like, okay, I see you start
I'm
to
jumping the
talk.
gun. But I would say mine is, I don't agree with family over everything.
Ooh.
Therapy has really helped me get to a point where I choose not to remain in relationship with people who are going to continue to harm me. Yeah. And harm doesn't have to be physical harm. It could be mental, emotional. And so, unfortunately, maybe due to the proximity that we have, a lot of times it can be family members that cause, now you're talking about going deep, but.
Listen, we swimming already. I'm all the way here for it.
But yeah, that would be my unpopular opinion. I think some people have this undue or blind loyalty just because a person is a family member. And it makes me think of when people say, you know, you can forgive someone, but that doesn't mean that you have to be back in relationship with them. I agree with that 100%.
100%. Boundaries.
Yeah.
It's like the principal effect. Like if you, as a kid, if you treat every adult as an authority, and then you never learn, like, it's not a role thing.
Yep.
It's a respect thing. Then you grow into feeling like, just because it's my auntie, just because it's my cousin, just because it's my mama.
Yeah.
Like ooh. Come on. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
How is your spirit?
I think right now, you know what? Let me start again, because taking it back to therapy, my therapist always says when she asks me questions about how I feel or something like you said, my spirit, I always go to
Think.
Yeah, like
my therapist told me the same thing the other day. That's crazy.
So I'm trying to be mindful of that. You know, but this is why I love therapy, because I've probably done that majority of my adult life because I've been forced to in different situations. And so I think that's one of the blessings of therapy, is that it puts right in front of your face behaviors and one, showing you that it ain't always the other person. But yeah, it makes me more mindful. So in my spirit, I feel full right now because this is the first time that we're recording in Left on Red. I applied for this space almost a year ago, and the road to being here wasn't necessarily super hard, but it was just a lot of unknowns and uncertainties, and sometimes that can be harder than just getting a flat out no, because you know what it is at that point. it's just the fulfillment of a dream. To share with you all, the audience, quickly, what Sam and I are going to be doing today. People have been asking, when is Dr. Tasha going to be interviewed? We want to know what Dr. Tasha thinks Black in One Piece is. And so I said, who would be the right person to have this conversation with? And of course, who other than Sam Thompson, Thinking Out Loud host? I thought that would be the perfect fit. And so I'm excited to have this conversation. It's going to be a mashup of Sam style and our Black in One Piece questions. And I know y'all are going to enjoy it.
These are some fire questions. You know what's, it'll always start my conversation with how's your spirit. And I tell people I don't have a lot of questions. But it's dope to have these questions, right? Because you put some thought into it, and it's so intentional and on purpose, right? And I think when I think of being Black, it's intentional and on purpose.
That is true.
You feel me? Like we walk with power. But I ain't gonna digress like I normally do. We're gonna digress later. But let me ask you this, Dr. Tasha. Do you believe Blackness and Black culture are one and the same? And break it down for me.
The number of times I've asked this question of guests, you would
got
think,
cheat codes.
Yes, I should have a flat out answer. But part of why I included this question on the ones that I wanted to ask each time is because it's just a dynamic question. There's no one right answer. And I've heard people say different things and I be agreeing with all of them. I don't necessarily think they're the same. And the biggest part of that for me is because Black culture has been so commodified. But I also, in my mind, it's almost like I have Blackness and then I see Black culture, and Black culture has branches. And one branch is this part that has been super commodified. But even with that, there are parts of us, and maybe this goes back to the Blackness, this is where I get torn, that nobody could ever commodify. Nobody could ever duplicate. They could try,
For sure.
but it's stale, you know what I'm saying? It's ashy. It's not moisturized how it needs to be. So for me, that's the culture. Blackness goes back to, one of my guests talked about how you could have a group of Black people and all of them are not for the culture, basically. And I agree, that resonated with me because how you were saying being Blackness is intentional. Everybody don't feel that way. And I learned that through these conversations because when you're a qualitative researcher, they talk about how you have to account for researcher bias. And that definitely played a role because I had to fix my face a couple of times. But reminding myself that this is the whole reason why you wanted to do this, because even though there is a lot of things that join us together, we also all have a unique experience. And so one example I'll share is I didn't grow up in the Black church. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. A lot of people would associate Blackness and Black culture with the Black church. And for me, I feel like, listen, I'm as Black as they come. As our first guest, Joseph said, Blackity, Black, 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 right? But I don't have that Black church component, and I don't think that waters down or diminishes my Black experience either.
That's actually fire. Blackness is a lived experience.
Yeah.
I wake up Black. My neighbor can engage in Black culture.
Yes.
But they'll never be able to experience Blackness. And I think like our culture is American culture. We shape what's cool, what's fresh, what's hot. So much so they're doing it in Japan. It's world culture. And Black culture is created through perseverance, through anti-culture in some spaces. To the whole gamut, even the LGBTQ community has so much Black culture in there. When I think to history, everything is Black culture. Blackness, you have to be another brother or another sister to experience Blackness, to know that, I don't want to say that fear, but I was taught to play defense as a kid. I don't teach my kids to play defense as they embrace and make sure they make it Black in one piece.
The way you articulated that just now was helpful to me, like in sorting it out in my head, because even those individuals who are not for the culture, at the end of the day, when they walk out that door,
I'm not Black, I'm OJ.
Exactly.
So with that, and this is a fire question, you got some fire questions. What is peak Blackness to you? When do you find yourself saying, I just love us?
I started calling it peak Blackness during the pandemic, and we just so on social media, and you know, we gonna make a way out of no way, we gonna find the humor in something. And so there were so many posts that I was seeing where it would constantly be, I love us, I love us. And I'm like, this is peak Blackness. Those shared experiences, whenever we're in community, the looks that we can give each other. I ain't never met you, but I know you know what I'm thinking about this person that just walked by acting a fool, that kind of stuff. Or even just, you know, if I go to a conference and it's predominantly white, I know if I find that one or two other black people there, they got me. We gonna find some places that we can go. We gonna hold each other down, be safe together, travel together. Never met these people in my life. I love that for us and about us. In peak Blackness right now for me, because I think it changes at different times. And right now I'm really loving seeing so many of us embrace rest and wanting to be well. And that, when I see us striving for that, the reality of our situation in capitalism is even if you resist it, some way, somehow, you get tapped by it. It touches you in some way. But us just continuing to try to get to a place where we're gonna prioritize ourselves, we're gonna prioritize rest, we're not gonna work ourselves into the ground. To me, that's peak Blackness. Because for so long, we haven't been able to put ourselves first in that way.
We turn shit to sugar.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like we turn lemons to lemonade in almost every situation. When I think to peak Blackness, it's wild. It stands out to me though, is Wakanda Forever. I remember when Black Panther first dropped. I'm an MCU nerd. I love just the way we rallied behind fun. And in that one experience of Black Panther movie, the character, the whole Wakanda, what it meant for the culture. Because you think about Comic-Con and what that means to nerd culture, or even peak whiteness in some cases, right? We were able to have something that was ours and what that turned into from there. Wakanda represented the fictional place. Represented something so much bigger for so many people. I'm talking folks at the movie theater dressed up, right? Like renting out the, that's peak Blackness for me. Let me ask this, how do you define Blackness?
Woo! It's a vibe. All the time. Earlier, I was sharing with Sam that growing up, we were allowed to listen to music. That was one of the things that my parents weren't strict on. My mom was already a strict parent, and then add on top of that, the Jehovah's Witness piece. But there would be certain random things that she was lax on, and my brother and I now say it was the stuff that she liked. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
Sorry, Mom. But yeah. So I was thinking, being black is one black in one piece. The acronym is BOP, right? So I was like, it's a bop. And then I said like a song we replay every 3 minutes and 30 seconds of every day. Shout out to El Boogie. For me, because music is everything to me. It is something that I can go to, let's say I don't have a therapy appointment coming up, or like when I'm feeling very, very anxious, my anxiety is through the roof, music is what will bring me down. It's always been that way. That's how I feel about Blackness. This might sound like a oxymoron, I think would be the right word, but it's a safety to me. It's a warm hug to me. Whereas all that stuff outside, yes, when we walk outside the door, we might carry some fear with us, but my people and the way that the culture brings us together. So I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. My sorority, the D9 as a whole, the Links, Jack and Jill, there's so many other organizations that we've developed. Each of those are iterations of the culture and us just finding additional ways to come together and bond. For me, that's what Blackness is. It's like a place to always come home to. And I also say it's a vibe all the time, because I know people say it's a struggle, it's hard being black, it's this, it's that. And it can be all of those things, but I would not trade being black for anything. And even just knowing that I can get on Black Twitter, or I could be having the worst day, and the stuff that we come up with is hilarious.
Crazy.
And I just love that for us, just our ingenuity, how innovative we are. It's a whole lot of things, but if I had to describe it in one line, being black is a vibe all the time.
Yes, I love that. I agree. I mean, like, because it's real, right? Like being black is, like, I'm not black by choice. Like, I woke up this way. If nobody told me I was black,
Right.
who would, like, would I know? Right? Like, as a baby born knowing that they black, but then once you black,
Right,
and you engage in being black every day, waking up, like having an unspoken common language.
Yeah.
Right? Like being able to self-regulate. It's so dynamic. We talked about Blackness versus black culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, again, a privilege.
Ooh, yeah.
I really feel like being black is such a privilege, because you don't have to play defense. You're constantly reminded who you are, whether it be from the outside world or by yourself, right? Just because of different things that you may be challenged with. Yeah. It's a work perk, right? Like, I'm a 6'3" black dude, right? So I go into office spaces and I'm either gonna be perceived as this way or that
Yes.
way. And I'm going to play it to my favorite. Right?
As you should.
You feel me? And I think that's a privilege.
Yeah.
But Blackness is just such it's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
It's like you can't even put it into words. It's just so like complex and beautifully complex. Something you said earlier made me think about my friends and I always say that we should be able to put the things that we have to adapt to and the skills that we have to learn on our resume, because it's a whole nother set of abilities that other people don't have to ever develop in their life. That goes back to the Blackness piece, where it doesn't matter if you're for the culture or not, you still have had to figure out how to be and show up in certain spaces. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not showing up as yourself. My brother, he defined Black in One Piece as, he said early on in his career, he felt like he had to cut certain parts off to play the game. He was like, but now I still play the game, but I play it Black in One Piece. I'm not cutting off nothing. What you see is what you get, but I'm up on game now.
I think like the monolith thing. It's such a corny cliche, but we're not a monolith, right? There's no such thing as acting Black or even a Black person that may be more proper as acting white. I've made it a point early on in my professional career to never shrink, right? But I also recognize what's gonna come with it. Right? I know the sometimes uphill battle I'm gonna have to deal with by me showing up to board meetings, showing up to facilitate meetings a certain way. I know the reservations that folks might have, but when it boils down to it, you love us.
Exactly.
Love
At the end of the day.
You love us, right? So.
Yeah. But I love that you said that, because I talked about this with Zoe in her interview, and I was sharing with her how Corinthian will always be like, Tasha, you being too radical when I'm mentoring or advising the young college students. He's like, you're established and you have a level of privilege and you're just in a different space than they are. I totally get that. But for me, that doesn't mean tell them to show up any differently. It's just for me to prepare them and educate them on, when you show up in this way, this is what you're likely going to be faced with. And that's cool, because we getting you ready right now. Right now.
Legit.
That's what I want. It sounds like, I don't have children, but from you and at the screening for our first episode, there were some questions that came up about, should we as parents continue to tell our children that you have to be 3 times better or 20 times better or whatever. And it was a really good conversation, but I like what you're saying around how you're not setting your children up like that.
Like, I want them to, like, you dope how the hell you are. If you feel like you have to be 3 times better, then you're playing 3 times harder, right?
Woo, goodness gracious.
You're enough already. And if you recognize you're enough already, then when you do take that 10 to a 20, it's more intentional. And it has more of an impact. And you're not exhausted from showing up, drained. I first started at the company that I work for, right? And I came in gung-ho. I came from a higher leadership position into this company from a previous company I was at. So I was looking at the business way different than some of my peers. And I would just always kind of question, like, yo, why are we going about the business this way? We have top performer and bottom performer in our same building, right? Like, what's happening? And I was just constantly push and challenge, and it was received positively. But I had a Black woman that was a coworker at the time. She was like, Sam, I promise you, I've been saying some of these same things. And I'm like, word? Like, and then I found myself trying to coach her, like, yo, why don't you go about it this way? Why don't you go about it that way? And it took me maybe 2 to 3 weeks before I said, I got male privilege. And my male privilege is allowing me to do these things. I apologize. Because I recognize you don't have the space to do, the space isn't being open for you to do that. And then when you do show up 3 times better than yourself, quote unquote, you perceived as over-aggressive Black woman. And then the question arises, do I want to be in a space where I can't be me? It's so layered. It's so layered.
Very layered, It's
layered. You got a question on here I can't skip over, because it's something that I often think about. Where do you consider home or your hometown?
757 all day, y'all. Y'all know that by now. I'm from Newport News, Virginia. I actually was born in Germany. My father is retired Army, but we ended up in Newport News when I was 8. I went to elementary, middle, high, and college in Newport News, so that is home.
Let me ask this. The Kellys, y'all not from here. Y'all not from Wichita.
No.
But y'all came and put a stamp right? And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who has colleagues that are from out of state. And they're like, it's something about people that come from out of town to Wichita that thrive. Why do you think that is?
I think it's one of those things where you take for granted sometimes what's right there in front of you. Most people know Virginia Beach. People who come to visit, they're like, oh, I can't wait to go to Virginia. And I'm like, I'm not trying to see no Virginia Beach. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things. The number of people who are from Wichita who have asked me since I've been here, well, how do you like Wichita? And they ask just like that. And I know they're expecting something negative. And they're shocked when I'm like, I really like it. Because, how can I say this? I know that the Lord had me destined for greatness and whatever that looked like. But I do not believe that it would have necessarily shaped up the way that it has or in the time that it has if I had remained in the DC area. Prior to coming here, I had been living for the previous 6 years in the DC area and working in the DC area. And for me, it was just too much hustle and bustle, very overstimulating, and I was just tired of it. So I had been thinking about moving back closer to home. Coming out here in that sense was the perfect change of scenery for me because here is similar to my hometown in terms of the pace. It's not as much traffic. It has some city to it. Back home is of course more diverse, but the pace is just better. For me, and I assume for them as well, that was part of it. The vibe here, I do really enjoy. Everybody that I have encountered, generally speaking, has been very kind and welcoming. Even with Left on Red as an example, there's been a couple of local bookstores who have reached out, just called me out the blue and asked, hey, would you like to meet? And you can just ask me whatever you want to ask. Another bookstore owner called me and said, you've got to apply for this book grant. This is the perfect opportunity for you. They did not have to do that. To me, those people and those opportunities are here and have been here, but I think sometimes we get jaded and you can't see what's right in front of you. Because the pace is a little bit slower, I felt more comfortable networking in a way that I was not doing in DC. In DC, a lot of people were going to happy hours and stuff. I'm not finna go to no happy hour. I don't want to be in the city any longer than I have to be. I gotta catch my train. It's just too much. I can count on one hand over a decade-long career with the federal government in DC that I went to happy hour. Just not my scene. But here, after I got settled, the first thing I went to was The Gathering. It's committed to retaining Black talent and Black professionals here in Wichita. And one way that you can do that is by showing us that there are more of us here. Then I went to Create Campaign, and I have been here about 6-7 months. Going to the forum is where I learned about Spark Community Business Academy. And I told Alejo as I was leaving, I'm gonna apply. And I was saying it kind of like, ha ha ha. And he was like, yeah, you need to. And applied, and the rest is history. I just keep showing up. I think maybe when you're from a place, you just kind of get over it, or you're not exploring how somebody not from the area would be trying to find new places and new connections. You're so used to saying, there's nothing to do here, or there's no opportunities here. I tell this story all the time. This just shows you how much the Kelly family was in love with Wichita before I even got out here. Daryl and Jackie came because of Daryl's military career. They loved it, wanted to raise my nieces and nephew here. The next person to come is my sister-in-law, Veronica, their baby sister, who's in her 30s. And then Corinthian came out because he had left his job, and Daryl was like, you should come out and get your master's at WSU. You can save money, stay with us. And so as soon as he got out here, he contacted me and was like, you gotta come out here. Mind you, we're not even together right now. We is on an off, okay?
Okay.
And so I was like, come to Wichita. And we not, what? And so it took us some time. We made our way back. But I say that because he was just so serious about this. He kept saying there's so much opportunity out here. And I couldn't see it. I was like, I mean, stereotypical, like when I told my girlfriends, oh, I'm getting married and I'm moving to Kansas, they was like, oh, a Wizard of Oz. Like, yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I was in that same headspace, you know? But that goes back to the importance of taking leaps of faith, stepping out on faith, because I knew I wanted to be with Corinthian, and we were trying to figure out, should he come back to DC or I come out here? And he was just like, the opportunities out here far outweigh what is in DC. And it's an interesting thing to think, because I was at a vending event and someone who's from here kept saying, I want to go to DC. I'm trying to convince my wife to move there because there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, but it's also very oversaturated. Whereas here, I feel like, depending on what you're trying to get into, it's wide open.
Word.
So I know that was a super long answer.
No,
but
that's real. That's real. Because I love it though, right? Because I'm from Wichita, born and raised. All my life, I grew up down the street from the university.
Okay.
I joke that I still didn't go to the university. I love my city.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people take for granted, like you mentioned, the great things in our city. Like when me and my wife and my kids go out of town, we eat local. First thing we search is where's the local place to eat, and then we like, yo, we got to do better making sure we eat at the homegrown places here. No pun intended. Eat at the places that are home, making the best of some of the city things like the Keeper of the Plains and like some of the stuff that feels corny because you grew up here.
Yeah.
But it's like, yo, this is our culture and it's our niche, right? And that's how we win. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yes.
Indeed.
So I want to ask you, and this might be taking us to a different place. So, because I was going to ask you if you were from Wichita. So knowing that, something that I have found, and this ties into Black in One Piece, because when I was going through Spark, yes, everybody knew that the name of my business was the Millennial Black Professor. But when I applied, I said, I'm doing t-shirts, I'm doing editing, I'm doing da-da. And they were like, you need to focus on one thing. And then you can apply to other stuff. So I picked editing because I had been doing that pro bono for so many people. And people were like, you need to start charging because your time is valuable. So that's why I picked editing. Going through that, it really didn't, to me, when I think back, have a direct correlation to the Millennial Black Professor, other than that is my identity. But I wasn't pressing that in my pitch. I wasn't making that connection. My people know from back home, all my research, anything that I've ever done academically or otherwise is always centering Black people in some way in our experience, and just trying to elevate it and explore it. There's certain entities or spaces where they value a certain kind of research, either trying to flip that to demonstrate that research about us and for us has value and is rigorous as well, or just building my own space like TMBP Media to get it out there, because I know it's valuable whether you say it is or not.
Real life.
But so I've been doing this, right? So coming out here, nobody knows me, and I'm not thinking about that. I'm just like, oh yeah, everybody know I'm pro-Black, I'm the Millennial Black Professor. So I started getting a couple of speaking engagements. When I'm coming to speak, I'm, power to the people, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I am just being me. And I could tell like the response from some people was taken aback a little bit. And in my mind, I'm like, you hired the Millennial Black Professor. Like, what did you think you was getting?
Come on.
But it also goes back to realizing that I wasn't marketing like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't thinking business. When I came here from Virginia, I wasn't thinking about having a business.
Word.
I know it was the Lord, but I always would say, I don't know what possessed me to get an LLC. I came up with the name during the height of COVID. We just at home doing stuff, right?
Passing time.
And so I came up with the name, and I started fiddling with maybe doing some t-shirts, but never in a million years was thinking that I'm gonna be a full-time entrepreneur. I'm a government employee till the day I die. Like, that's what I was thinking. And especially when they said the game changer in terms of when I was doing my pros and cons list about coming out here, I did not want to come, not even just here, but anywhere where I didn't have employment. It's always been important for me to be able to take care of me, because anything can happen. When they said, yeah, you can continue to work for us out there, and if you have to go in, you can go to the Kansas City office. I'm like, bet. So all this to say, you see how I get off track.
I love it. I think out loud. Listen. It's called a train of thought for a purpose, right?
Yes. But because I'm like, where was I going with that? But all that to say, I realized just some of the things that we learned through Spark, I wasn't applying them. And that had some to do with me realizing that trying to do editing as what my business is was not in alignment with my purpose. And so when I started thinking about, okay, you got to shift your business model, because I'm not choosing to work for myself and doing something that I hate, or that I dread. That doesn't even make sense. I could have stayed where I was. Yeah. So when I started thinking about that, I said, what do I love? What am I really good at? And that's how I came to workshops, speaking engagements. But if I'm speaking, if I'm doing a workshop, it's going to be about us. It's going to be in some way, shape, or form. And so this is a long roundabout way to get to the fact that sometimes I've noticed, even in people who, and these are Black people, but who support me or say they support me, and I believe that they do, but I feel are taken aback by how just out there I am with being Black. So prime example, we were in the Spark cohort that I instructed with Tijuana. there was an entrepreneur, and they were saying that their business up until then had really been focusing on supporting Black women, but they felt like that was keeping them from being able to grow.
Okay.
And so basically they were asking for advice on what they should do. And I looked at T, I said, no, you asking the wrong one. I said, because I'm just, the way, and this is not an indictment on anybody else's faith or anything like that, but the way that my faith is set up, if you don't want to work with me because I'm focused on Black issues, then we were never meant to work together. And I don't believe that us not partnering is going to derail me from what the Lord has for me. Like what the Lord has for me is what he has for me. I feel very strongly about that. And so I don't have any qualms about moving forward or just staying focused on it's for Black people.
Yeah.
But I get when people out here just trying to make it, I get the concern. So, Tijuana had to come on and, bring it on home. Yeah. Okay. I was saying to somebody, I don't know if it's just people didn't know that was my focus. Whoever I was talking to was from here, and I said, I don't know if it's a regional thing, and they were like, yeah, it's regional.
Yeah, it is, right? For one, you was in the DMV.
Yeah.
Like next to Atlanta. I don't know what's more Black, right?
Right.
And proud of Black.
Yes.
And almost, I want to say oversaturated when it comes to Black owned, but it's like, I've never been out there, but I feel like Black is secondary to whatever you're doing, right? It's just my business. I think Midwest.
That's it, yeah.
That's the piece, right?
Yeah.
In the Midwest, it's like, especially Wichita. Wichita is such a weird place. Always go to we 7%, right?
Yeah.
And then you got the socioeconomic piece of it, right? And then you've got the corporate.
Yeah.
Then you've got the North Side, right? Who may not engage in these things, but have a voice in these things that go on. And so when you get that odd dynamic of Blackness, and it's so concentrated.
Yeah.
And then everybody feel like they know everybody, and everybody's related.
Yeah.
Right? It hits different.
Yeah.
So then I think you have some business professionals even who don't want to lean too far into that Blackness out loud in the corporate spaces because the corporate opportunities are limited.
Yeah.
Right? Myself, I don't give a damn.
Right. Yeah.
Right? But I also don't put the Black on front of nothing I do. I'm me. I'm Sam.
Right.
You book me for this, or this. This is how we rocking. Because money green. But know the values that I stand on.
Right.
Know my morals. There's a lot of issues in the world I know, but I first got to take care of the world I know.
Right.
Shout out to Jay-Z. So I think that's one of the things that happens in the Midwest. Is because then if you just go a little further south to Oklahoma, it hits different. Right, but then you have historical things like Black Wall Street, right, the Tulsa Massacre. So there's more of a culture. Back to the Kansas, Wichita, like it is indeed a regional thing. Because folks, we power to the people. Yes, for sure. Right, but it's either so aggressive or it's loud and not stood on.
Okay.
It just sound good.
So maybe that's it. Because listen.
It just sounds good.
But to your point, when you said that part about the distinction of it being Black owned, for example, there's just not a lot of Black owned bookstores, period, across the country compared to mainstream traditional bookstores. So you will see that distinction. But there's so many Black owned other types of businesses that it's not as, especially in PG County. Like that's the.
If I go to Atlanta, I can almost bet they're not telling me this is a Black owned. This is a restaurant. It's a judge. The culture is so ingrained. It's expected. And I think here we still trying to. We in the Bible Belt.
So in my interview with Dr. Marche, I talked with her about, as I was saying before, really praying for discernment, praying for alignment, and kind of pushing against that idea that you have to be at everything and do everything in order to get opportunities. Because a lot of people who I know mean well and who are close to me push for that. And I'm just like, I physically cannot. Like, I can't. And so I have had to get more and more comfortable, not just with saying no, because we know no doesn't need seasoning, right? But also with, even when people are in my ear who think, who like I said, mean well, right?
Yeah.
And are saying, you've got to be at this thing. It goes back to my faith where I cannot imagine that if I don't go to this event, the Lord is going to be like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to bless you with that. You know, I just don't believe that. And so that's what has freed me up a lot from feeling that pressure to be everywhere. I do not have FOMO. I'm not missing out on nothing. Like, I'm resting my body or doing something else. But it's like, you just can't be at everything. I have been standing on being the millennial Black professor, trying to do work that is enhancing and supporting our community. And my big thing this last year of doing workshops has been around whatever I'm talking about. And this goes back to my teaching. It don't matter what I'm teaching. I'm always gonna weave in a class or two that's focused on our mental health. Because of the world we live in, I want them to know that it's okay to take a beat. And I try to be that one professor that is gonna give them breaks to the point that I can, you know, because it's like you don't get that often. And I tell them too, like, you can't be expecting this in your other classes. But I'm like, listen, I have been through some things, and if it weren't for me getting some breaks sometimes from some people, and sometimes I didn't get the breaks, and I just know what it would have meant to get the break. I want to be that for my students.
I serve as the board chair of the Mental Health America. There may be 3 other people of color in the room, board-wise, right? But I'm a huge advocate of mental health. Now we have more language around mental health. Our generation is making it a priority. So the generation underneath us is kind of going like the Black owned, right? Just is, right? Why do you think there is such a stigma on mental health in Black community? And is it anti-Black, right, to seek mental health resources?
Wait, you said, is it anti-Black to seek mental health resources?
Mental health and acknowledge mental health opportunities.
Is it anti-Black to seek mental health support?
Yeah.
Who said that? So,
because there's let me put some more on it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's first such a huge stigma on it, and then even for the longest, the church,
yes,
right,
yes,
superseded mental health acknowledgement.
Okay, I'm following you now.
You tracking
Okay,
me? And it was like, pray it out. There's little things we put on it to not acknowledge that there is a mental health opportunity, challenge, crises going on.
So now I'm with you. My line sisters and I have launched a podcast, and it's called Ready to Unlearn. I got my master's from William & Mary. And a while ago, they did research into their beginnings, and it was built by enslaved people. The college, they have been trying to right their wrongs, so there's different programs. One of them is this Lemon Porch Talk series. We submitted to present at a conference, and they said that our proposal was so good, they wanted to do a standalone event. And our proposal focused on the Black church model on mental health. Exactly what you're asking about is what we were talking about. I came up with this term called religious grooming. I was like, I look at it as we're conditioned to not have boundaries, to feel that we're being disrespectful when we do have boundaries. We're conditioned to feel like you're not a good Christian, or you're not a good Christian woman, or a good person if you don't run yourself into the ground, whether it's working for ministries or doing for the church. After this talk, we got a lot of feedback, and one person wanted to get so into the particulars of, well, what church are you talking about? And we were saying, we're not talking about any particular church. The reason why we're saying the Black church model is because, like I said, I didn't grow up in the Black church, but these ways of being are rooted and ingrained in survival mechanisms from all the way back in slavery times. That permeates across any denomination, and has my mom, who's a Jehovah's Witness, even being this way, because it was passed down to her. We were trying to help them to appreciate. Don't get so bogged down into that nitty-grittiness of it. We're just saying, as a people, a lot of our ways of being and moving are rooted in that history. I would say it's anti-Black to continue moving in those ways just because that's the way it's always been. To me, that's anti-Black. That's why we're doing the Ready to Unlearn. And we've been trying to talk about all kinds of things, even around our last episode focused on a Black women's healthcare manifesto. And it was talking about how we're also conditioned as a society not to question authority, like you were saying earlier. And so we're going to these doctors and they're not helping us. They're ignoring us. They're acting like we faking and all this other stuff. And we're not advocating for ourselves, or we might not know how to advocate for ourselves, or we feel like we can't switch and go get a second opinion.
Right.
So just helping us to unlearn that stuff. And so,
Ooh, I'll be in there spitting.
yes, you gotta check it out.
I'm checking it out. So a question that staying on the shape of black, the conversation of blackness, as a black woman, what do you feel like is one of the biggest misconceptions that the world has about black women? And that sounds wild even because I don't want to generalize it, of course, right? But what do you think is like one of the biggest misconceptions?
That we're strong. And I know that probably sounds bad to some people, but that is the biggest misconception. Because in talking to my friends, colleagues, just perusing social media, we are off that so bad. Like, we're not trying. Who wants to be having to operate in that way all the time? I think a lot of us are making the choice now not to be that.
Word.
So some people call it soft life,
you know.
yeah. But whatever you call it, whatever it looks like. And when I say we're not strong, we're talking about mental, emotional, just taking the brunt of, even in relationships, going back to that stigma around mental health. When you have two people coming together, and if one or both individuals are not willing to do that work, it's a weight. And particularly when you have one person who is working on themselves and the other person is not. For black men, there's that stigma, but it goes beyond just the general stigma that we've always had, like, oh, don't be telling your business, or that's for white people. But it's also the idea that that's soft, or that's not manly, or, you know what I mean? Like I think that's
balance of masculine and feminine. We have them as men and women, right? We have masculine and feminine energy, being able to embrace either one when the time calls for it. And I might need to shed a tear a little bit.
Yes, and I'm like, do it, like release it. Yeah.
And it's ill, and I've seen it a lot growing up, like the quote, but it's like black women are the only women that are expected or praised rather for being strong. I ain't never heard of a strong white woman or a strong Mexican. I definitely heard of a strong Asian woman. But strong, you feel me? But like strong black women is so celebrated, right? And stop it.
Stop. Yeah.
Stop. I tell my wife, like, yo, you chill. Like, yo, you go be a boss out here. Like, when you leave the house, when you come home.
Yes.
Like,
you sound like Corinthian. But it's hard to turn that off, though, when you do have to be that way all the time.
100%.
I was just talking to someone I'm close with, and she was venting to me. I knew that she had a week of training coming up, and so I checked in with her and was like, hey, how'd the training go? And she was like, terrible. And I was like, oh, well, I know your part went good. And she was like, no, mine was not good. And I was like, oh, man, what happened? And she was like, me doing too much, worrying about other people, like trying to support other people to get their stuff together. She was like, this one woman, a white woman, who had these core pieces to the training didn't show up, and we were told that she was sick. So she was like, I'm trying to extend grace because you can't help if you're sick. When the woman ended up showing up much later, they ended up talking. She said, I'm gonna have to check with her, I might have to edit this out, but she was but she said that she got the vibes that the person was kind of faking being sick, but then they went out and the lady had tissues and this, that, and the other. So she's like, okay, maybe anyway, they get to talking and she asked her, how are you feeling? So-and-so said you were sick. And she was like, oh, that's probably just what she told y'all. I was just hysterical after the election results. I said, her and the supervisor ain't got no sense. Because I'm like, if anybody needed to be calling out because of the election results, it should have been you, my friend, right?
Listen.
But I said that's the level of selfishness, for one, because she knew that the person was going to pick up that slack.
Yeah.
And she knew that the supervisor was going to allow it. That weight then fell on my friend. It's stuff like that that happens all the time. I won't go into detail, but the job I left that was super toxic, when it was really out of hand, this was maybe 4 weeks before it was a wrap.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let me just try to have a come to Jesus moment with my supervisor and let her know this is what's going on. And you know what happened? I know you know what happened.
You either got written up or got shunned away.
She started crying.
Because you giving her your I'm tracking. Yeah, that was going to be my third one. Yeah, she took it.
Yeah, and I'm just telling her straight up fact, not hollering, not just regular, it's a regular business meeting, but I'm sharing, these are the things that are happening. These are I don't even like to call them microaggressions.
That's crazy, I even thought that it would be those two. Because that's another thing.
Yeah.
Right? My bad.
No,
My
but
bad.
you're
I
right
ain't
though. Those would have been possibilities. But she started crying, and I was just like, "You've got to be kidding me right now."
So I used to be a diversity manager for a telecommunications company, and I would train across the country, train all our call centers, train our exec team, all of that good stuff. And it was 2016 when Trump was elected the first time, right? And we were in our strategy session for the year, how we planning out the whole enterprise's diversity and inclusion before it was equity and class added to it, right? That's hilarious.
Terrible.
But we were planning out our whole strategy. We had an outside consultant come in and plan with us. And I'm the only black man, I'm the only man, right? Got a white woman, mixed girl, a lesbian, right? And I like to add the context to it, right? And then my director, they all great people, so I love them. She's affluent, right? But he's like, okay, the consultant's like, okay, how's everybody feeling post-election? Let's put it all on the table. And to just watch, I'm like, word, like how emotional and things they were.
Yeah.
And then they got to me and I'm like, I'm a black man.
Right.
Like none of this is new, right? And so, as I mentioned earlier though, I recognize the male privilege. So I applaud black women. I say it all the time, y'all like the illest, dopest creation of God. Sometimes I get looked at crazy. I'm like, God's a black woman. I don't know. But I'm just thinking, right? Like
That's another episode.
It's another episode, you feel me? And I have no scientific facts to base that, but I'm just saying, right? Like just knowing how dynamic you all are. Like it's ill. It's ill.
Yeah.
So kind of just looking at the story you just told, right? How do you display your blackness in your daily life?
Listen, I told you they call me the radical in my family, but I really feel like I'm not doing anything major or outrageous. I'm just showing up. Everybody who's been watching the show knows that my dissertation research focused on skin complexion, colorism, and hair discrimination, and particularly how it shows up at predominantly white campuses for Black undergraduate women. The stories that they would share, how it started so young and then followed them into their career searches and romantic pairings and things like that. It's always been important for me to show up in those spaces in higher ed, wearing my hair how I wear it. It could be a fro, it could be braids, it could be locks, it could be whatever, but how we do as Black women, it could be something different every single day, but that's how I'm showing up. And this really dates back before I was even natural. I still had a relaxer, but I would be wearing my braids when I was an admissions officer. I would be traveling around and talking to a lot of high school students. And it would be the young Black girls that would always say something about my hair and just like, oh, you look so professional. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm glad that I'm making that impression and I'm making it with my hair in braids so that they can know that, hey, ain't nothing wrong, unprofessional with us showing up like this. Same thing in my classrooms, but also not just for the Black women, but for on these predominantly white campuses, I want y'all other people to see it too. Y'all need to get used to this. If you're never seeing it, you're never seeing it. So just showing up in all those spaces, looking how I look, talking how I talk, so people will know like I talk how I talk. I'm not changing, and you know, people will think, oh, you know, once you get these degrees, you got your little your degree.
Think y'all smart.
Yeah. But and that's part of my challenge with when you all are celebrating me, and I appreciate the love so much. But now just going into another path, it's that this is something that I want for us to unlearn, is that idea of having to be humble, because and people get it twisted, like the idea of that they automatically translate that into you're being cocky, and I'm like, no, it just means we don't have to water ourselves down. And I found that in a lot of different situations, even in our community, where people will feel like they have to humble you because they feel like you're not being humble enough. Yeah, but so that's another conversation. But I bring that up because to me, that's part of displaying my Blackness as well, is standing more in. I am Dr. LaTasha Ely Kelly. If you want to call me Dr. Tasha, that's cool too. But putting respect on my own name so that other people will do the same and not feeling any kind of way about it, not worrying about how people perceive that, because it is what it is. When you think about how they say you got to have the confidence of a mediocre white man, like they could have got their PhD from whatever place, You best believe they're walking around saying, call me doctor. Well, and I will say though, I think there's cultural differences too, because I found in my classrooms where there's professors, white professors, they're like, oh, call me Bob. No, sir, no sirree Bob. Like, you're not.
No sirree Bob.
Like, you're not calling me by my first name. So I do think there's some other stuff going on there. But generally speaking, just showing up, being me, talking how I talk, looking how I look, wearing my hair how I wear it, that's all I can do. And just
100%.
always trying to advocate for us. That's how I display my Blackness.
Ooh, I love that.
What about you?
A lot of it's in how I communicate.
Yeah.
Right. So I share openly. Like I went to school for a semester, and they told me I wanted to be a profiler and a behavioral profiler, and it was like, oh, you need X amount of years for this, and I was like, I need money for my daughter right now. So that's all the school I did, right? And so I share that to say I show up as me. Like I don't let that shrink me when I'm in these different spaces, these different titles that I've gained without some of the preferred requirements.
Right.
Like I speak how I speak. I'm a rapper. I say that too, like, and I talk like a rapper 99% of the time. So even when I'm coaching and developing people, right, in corporate spaces, like, yo, I don't say awesome. I say that's dope. That's fire. I see you, right? I communicate the way I communicate. If I'm leading a board meeting, I'm communicating the way I'm communicating.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and not on no like extra on purpose. Like, no, it's just me.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like I said, I wear my hair the way I wear it. I started growing locks for that reason. Like, yo, I want to trust the process. If I can have the ugly phase on the outside, you feel me? Like, I don't care what nobody got to say to me. So really that. And I would also say, like, when I had my daughter, it made me want to be a better man, like a better me. And then when I had my son, I wanted to make the world better, right? Because I recognize, again, he's got my name, birthday 3 days away from mine. Like, yo, you gonna walk in a world better than you came in, right? And so showing up that way, empower on purpose, in purpose, like, but then also talking my shit, but working to be better.
Yes.
Right, like never feeling like I'm gonna celebrate myself, but never feeling like I'm done growing. Right, and so that's another part of displaying my Blackness daily. Never being afraid to learn. I would say every time we open the conversation, right, like empathy is a big thing for me because everybody deals with something, and I think my diversity work gave me a lens to see like, oh, everybody's trying to fight for something, and everybody feels like their thing is that much more important. In my world, making it home, right?
Yeah.
Black in one piece is the most important, but I also recognize self-preservation, and other folks have the same idea for themselves, but being Black, and a part of my Blackness is realizing like, yo, my wins don't shrink yours.
Right.
So stop feeling like whatever the hell you got going on is being imposed on by me winning. And
that
so
is
operating in that space too. So
I like what you said about part of it is always growing and everything, because I think that circles back to when you asked, do I think pursuing mental health support is anti-Black? A huge part of me displaying my Blackness since I started therapy has been being a huge proponent for it within our community. I was so happy and proud when it started becoming the norm between me and my girlfriends to talk about our therapy appointments. Or like, girl, my therapist got me all the way together the other day. Like, that's our normal conversation now. But however many years ago, even if we were going, we weren't talking about it. So I think that is part of displaying my Blackness too. And then circling back to when you were talking about the Kelly family, I really think this is important to say. Some people have given that, I guess, admiration, kind of what you were sharing, somebody said about the Kelly family. But it'd be other vibes going on too, and that's what I'm gonna say, right? It goes back to something that Candy said earlier, where a lot of times people are projecting. And when you talk about, I pay attention to and how people say stuff. Sometimes you get the comments about, oh, y'all came and y'all just taking over the city, right? And it's not said in a, oh, like y'all doing amazing, like that way. It's almost like a bitterness to it. And to me, I'm like, is it because you have been in this city all this time and have, for whatever reason, haven't taken advantage of those things, and now you're like annoyed with somebody who's come in and has taken advantage of those things? But the other piece of it is, I can say this really and truly about my own self, but I also know this to be true about Jackie, Daryl, Corinthian, Veronica. the things that they are doing here in Wichita, they would have been doing wherever they went. This is just the people that they are, wanting to serve the community and do good. And I feel like when you are genuinely just trying to live right and do right by people and, let the Lord order your steps, you will see a rich reward. I just truly believe that. And that doesn't mean that everything's always going to be peaches and cream good.
For sure.
But I do think that there's a light and a glow that comes with that is basically an honor and glory to the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I wish that people who kind of had that more of a thing to it would see that everything that we're doing at the end of the day is about bringing honor. Like when I'm praying to the Lord with anything, all the opportunities, please Lord, allow something that I'm doing. I want all of it to, but please allow the things that I'm doing to, at the end of the day, show somebody else what you can do and how far you can bring someone and bring honor and glory to your name. And so that's how I believe the entire Kelly family moves. Yeah.
Makes me think of one of my favorite Kendrick Lamar quotes. I quote rappers like most folks quote scriptures. But everything we say is nothing's new.
Yeah.
Everything we say, right? But one of my favorite lines is from Kendrick Lamar is, I know if I'm generous at heart, I don't need recognition. The way I'm rewarded, that's God's decision.
You see?
Like,
ooh.
And it's such a bar. It's such a bar.
Yeah. But I brought that up because I wanted to say that, to me, that is how I think we all display our Blackness on an everyday basis. Just being who we would be wherever we are and trying to let the Lord's light shine through us.
On purpose. Come on. What does Black in One Piece mean to you?
I talked about how in everything I do, I try to incorporate a component about wellness and mental health for us. One of the things I'm working on for this space, Left on Red, is a program that targets Black women, but it will be rewarding and fulfilling for Black men too. That's the vision. And the reason why I want to develop it is that I saw that there are a lot of programs out here for development, but it's all tied back to professional development, entrepreneurial development, leadership development, all something tied back to work, producing. Yeah. And I was like, I want something that's just focused on us being and then being well, right? And so for me, that's Black in One Piece, where no matter what it is that we're doing, if it is that we're choosing to work in any given moment, that we're working, but we're working within wellness, always rooted in, if I find that I need to take a rest or a nap, like I just in my grown adult, turned 40 in May life, started being able to take naps. I'm being so serious. It's not that I didn't want to take a nap. Physically, my body was like trained, my mind, it's always going. So I'd be jealous of people who, like my good friend, she knocked out, okay? But just even being able to lay your head on the pillow and go to sleep, I couldn't do that. So that is part of me being in one piece, retraining my body to be able to rest when I need to rest and not be in that space of just going. I would tell my therapist, and she told me she was gonna start finding me because I would always say, like Corinthian would be like, how are you ripping and running and doing all this stuff? And you just said you had a migraine. I've had migraine since I was like 11. And I'm like, this is my life since 11. Like, you just got to push through. And so I'll be telling my therapist that with everything, I had major surgery and I was working with a physical therapist, and she was asking me how the exercises were, because it was virtual. And I said, I had some pain. It was pretty bad, but I just pushed through. You got to push. And she was like, absolutely not. She was like, if it's, she was giving me the whole breakdown, like 2, 3, whatever, that's one thing. But if you at a 7, like, no, you need to stop the exercise. And I don't know why, but something clicked when she said that. So I went to my therapist and I said, hey, I was with the physical therapist and her saying that made something click for me, how this is how I've been operating in my regular life as well. Stuff be happening mentally, emotionally, psychologically at a 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm like, you just got to push through. Yeah. And so she said, if you say that one more time, because you always say that. There's certain things that I would be telling her. She would say, you're like telling the news when you're telling me some of this traumatic stuff that's happening. It goes back to staying in my head and not dropping into the feelings. For me, being Black in One Piece is all of those things, striving to be well, but also not falling into toxic positivity and this idea that, like, I hate when I see some women will be on social media like, if he ain't 100% healed, then I ain't like, It be killing me because I'm like, nobody's saying be in an abusive relationship or, take poor treatment.
Yeah.
But are you even 100%? Like, the fact that you're even saying that lets me know that you're not. So it's
Right.
like,
Ooh.
you know what I mean? So that's the other piece of it. Black in One Piece too means that you're always, like you were saying, always growing. There's the way that this world is set up, it's always something going on where you're needing to process. It may not be trauma per se, but there's something happening where you need to process, you need to talk it out. And so for me, being Black in One Piece is being okay with that.
Bars. I would definitely say it's, again, just the privilege of being Black, not playing defense, recognizing my power, recognizing how many people want to be me, how many people, how many cultures, how many races dislike me because they not like us.
Yep.
You feel me? I think that's one of the things, and being positive and productive in that. I like what you mentioned about toxic positivity, because oftentimes, like, if I say something like that, or I'm being positive in the way that I communicate, people think it's like over positive, or it's like a naiveness to it. Nah, it's just making the choice to not be on the bullshit, right? Like, one of my favorite books to read is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I heard that book.
I love it, right? Because it's just that reminder that, same as scripture, right? Wherever your treasure lays, there's your heart, right? Wherever you give your cares, and there's always going to be something to care about. So I can't walk outside wondering, like, okay, is this, knowing the way that America operates, I can't be worried about how this white woman perceiving me, how this white man perceiving me, how this police officer perceiving me. I'm not playing defense, right? For me, that's Black in One Piece. Standing in my power. What do they say? Power to the people? Black power? Like, recognizing what truly is Black power, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
So we talked a lot. I feel like I talked a whole lot, but
No, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Is there anything else that you want to share on this topic or otherwise?
I just reiterate again, like, just the thought that Black is not a monolith. I didn't go to school, but I often share with young fellas. I don't like to say young men because I don't want to put that on them yet. You ain't no man yet.
Right.
Young boys, grown boys, big boys. When I had a conversation with them, especially some that may be more proper, may have like a nerdy space, right? Like, people say I act white. Like, ain't no such thing as acting white, right? This is not a monolith of Black. Like, we have so many different experiences as Black people, and I can imagine, because people are people. If I went to a HBCU, there's going to be a breakdown, some way, shape, or form, of all the Black people, right? Socioeconomic, interest, right? What you're there studying. So recognizing, like, your Blackness is who you are, right? The Black culture is what you engage in. So that's my thoughts as I just think out loud on.
When you said, what was that you just said? I just lost it because I was thinking to myself, that's anti-Black. not what you said, but
Was I talking about the nerds?
No, when you said people are saying, oh, you trying to be white or whatever, that's anti-Black. You are basically saying that you attribute these certain characteristics and ways of speaking or whatever with only white people, or that we cannot engage in those ways. That's ignorant and it's anti-Black.
If I had $1 for every time I've been in a space and they said I was so articulate.
I cannot stand that.
And I made it a point to ask, like, yo, would you tell him that? Like, with love. And I talk like that at work.
Don't even say with love. No, I'm playing.
right. But no, would you ask this person that?
Yeah. And to me, that right there, that's Black in One Piece. I mentioned I was an admission officer for my first big girl job, right? And we had to give presentations all the time. I went to a predominantly white school, and then they hired me on as a full-time staff member. The number of times when I would give presentations, it was a rare occasion that there was anybody Black or non-white in the room. The size of the groups ranged usually from 30, but there were times when it was up to 70, 80 people. It never failed. Somebody was gonna say, oh, you present so well, or you're so and that would burn me up. But I was in my early 20s, and I did not have the agency, I didn't feel I did at the time, to speak up. The people that I was reporting to would have said, oh, that's a compliment. You just bottle that stuff in. But now, I'm checking all of that. And to me, that's part of being Black in One Piece.
100%. What's ill, part of that is privilege. Like, if you want to play the game, let me, in all of my articulation, let me articulate my way into a bonus, because you see me. You see me as special.
Yeah, exactly.
But I get to choose.
Yeah.
I get to choose that part. So yes.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, thank you so much, Sam. Is there anything that you want the people to know you have coming up?
Oh, yeah, stay tuned in, tap in to Thinking Out Loud with Samuel David. It's just a conversation. Thinking Out Loud Convo on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Check out my Instagram, BigSam87. A lot of positivity, a little bit of music, a lot of life, and Best You, Better World life coaching on the way. So. And shout out to my wife, Two Beats Boutique.
Hey, yes.
Here in Wichita, Kansas.
This has been wonderful. We'll have to do another crossover sometime soon.
Yes.
But thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to check out all the wonderful things that Sam has going on, the Thinking Out Loud podcast. And until next time, stay black in one piece.
This episode is powered by Create Campaign. For information about Spark Community Business Academy, a 12-week entrepreneurship program, visit createcampaignkansas.com. Create Campaign. KS.com.
For more great episodes, subscribe to TMBP Media's channel on YouTube. Thank you for watching.
And we out.
We out. That was good, Sam.
That was fun. Yes, yes.
We could have kept going and going and going. I know Chase was like, if y'all don't stop.